So welcome back. Sorry for the crazy camera angle. It's as good as I could do right now, and that's all I feel like doing. I'm going to change it anyway because nobody wants to see me. So I had a couple things going on here today in Mr. Mikey's mad lab of trying to burn my garage down. I picked up a marver for my bench torch, which is pretty cool. I've always kind of wanted one of these, and I've never had one. This is called this is made by a company called Blast Shield. It's a pretty nice piece. It's made out of machined and extruded aluminum, and I splurged and got the silicon bronze V-notch cutter thing on here. I think I may have to, it's a little, I'll be honest, it's a little awkward. Outwardly, I haven't tried it yet. Well, I haven't installed it, so therefore I'm not totally sure how it's going to work out. But what I do know from just a couple seconds of messing with it is that it's really tight, or this thing's really tight. Oh, and they used metric. You sons of bitches. They actually didn't use metric. They used 11/30 seconds, which ironically I don't really have any. It's a nice. It seems nice so far. I'm going to screw it up right here by clamping it in a vise. At first I thought it, because it's a 9mm, which is like 11/30 seconds. It's a weird size. As a matter of fact, I only have it in a socket, and yep, that's exactly what it is. 11/30 seconds is not a wrench size that I have. Shockingly, I know, because it's not something that you see. You have to be very careful futzing around with this thing, because it's graphite. That's better. We'll see how that works. I just wanted to loosen it up a little bit. Well, I might be a little too loose now. It relies on a friction fit. Now we're going to leave it loose, and then actually I can't leave it too loose. No, this is going sideways real quick. Seems like there's a fine line between too loose and too tight. Oh, that's too loose. The last thing I want to do is boil or drop this thing, because if I drop it, it'll break. Graphite is incredibly brittle. Yeah, it's literally a quarter of a, or just a tiny bit of a turn. It's way bigger than I thought it was going to be. Alright, so that's a little better. They suggest putting oil on it, and I went with the right side. I had a choice, right side or left side. Quite frankly, it looks like I could just flip it around if I was so inclined. It's a pretty decent machined piece. I'm assuming it's done on a CNC machine, because it's the way it looks. This to me looks just like a piece of aluminum extrusion, with some holes threaded in, or holes threaded in it, and then graphite machines really nicely. It's a mess, the machine, but it machines really nice. So we got that. Now the other thing I have to do, or I have to address here, is my torch mount that I built for my Carlisle is in the way of this thing. I haven't even put it on yet, and I know it's in the way. So I'm going to have to fiddle with that torch mount a little bit. So I stopped by, a friend of mine has a machine shop, and I got these little knobs off of him. So one set of knobs I'm going to use as a knob, and the other set of knobs I'm going to use as a spacer. So I threaded one already. They're 1/4-28. So I'm going to re-tap them in 1/4-20, because apparently I don't have any 1/4-28 nuts or bolts. Well, I do. I just don't know where the hell they are right this minute. So you can rethread 1/4-28 or you can rethread quarter 28 to quarter 20, but you can't rethread quarter 20 to quarter 28. It doesn't work that way. And because this isn't, we're not building a nuclear reactor here or aircraft carrier or whatever, it's airplane. We're fine. All my machinist friends are cringing right now because I'm doing this. The other thing I'm going to do is hold the whole thing together with red Loctite. Because that's what I got. Yeah, I hear a lot of people bitch about red Loctite. To be honest with you, I've never had a problem getting it apart. The worst part about red Loctite is it tastes terrible. Alright, so I'm going to move the camera and we're going to install the blast shield and the new and improved torch mount here. I like that a lot. And it doesn't look bad. Alright, so let's take a look at this. Alright, let's adjust the camera. I am just going to sit here on my fat ass. I'm not even going to clean my table off. Because this is where I need to work. Alright, so obviously here's my Phantom. At first I thought this thing was too small, and actually it is. So I read the instructions after I looked at it, because isn't that the way you're supposed to do it? And it clearly says in the instructions that this piece is going to be too small to fit on the torch, which it is. And that the best way to fix that problem is to just pry it with a screwdriver, just like a battery terminal. I am slightly paranoid here. What we're going to do is we're going to back this all the way out just because we can. Now this thing was about $115. It didn't need to be $115. It never does. But I'm just gonna very carefully jam this screwdriver in here like a wedge. That should give us enough room to slide it on comfortably. Or not. Let's try it this way. Let's try it this way. Ain't gonna work either. That might. And this is quickly falling into if you're not comfortable with any tools other than glass blowing tools, you might not want to do this. The other thing is, and this is my own, this torch is so old that the specifications may be different. If you buy a blast shield, if you buy a marver from Willie and Wally, you get a blast shield marver. That's who makes their blast shields, or Willie and Wally make the blast shields. They make this part. I don't know who makes this part, but I know there's a connection between the two companies, which makes sense. I was really kind of hoping this was going to slide on a little easier. I gotta get a different screwdriver. This is already taking longer than I want it to. I'm really kind of tempted to take the graphite off of this, but I'm afraid it's Loctited together, and or these screws are super long. Graphite doesn't like to be threaded and unthreaded more than a few times, and then it starts to get a little fucky. Voice of experience. I also don't want to screw up my torch too much. Kind of attached to this thing. I was kind of hoping this was going to slide on a lot easier. I also don't want to. Might be a burr on here. Nah, it's actually bored pretty nicely. The surface finish on the inside of this is real nice. So it was bored and reamed. You can kind of tell. I think I'm gonna have to get a little bit more medieval on this thing. Yeah, it's definitely not doing what I want it to do. I'm gonna get a pair of. I'm gonna try a different tool. I'm not a fan of that screwdriver. Oh, almost got to see me go on my ass. Yeah, she don't want to go. We're about ready to get to the discretion is the better part of valor here. And put a pair of safety glasses on because I can see a problem already with me getting something in my eye. Now, my wife's away for the weekend, or for the week, and the last thing I need to do is to catastrophically jam something into my eye, and she hasn't even actually left the country yet. So, put a pair of safety glasses on. Boy, this is tight. This is uncomfortably tight. I'm gonna ream it out. Oh, because I don't want that to happen. We're gonna make that hole a little bigger. Or I'm going to take this whole thing apart. Boy, I really chewed that up. Yeah, I'm not a fan of that. All right, so this piece is coming off. Now, just because I can, I'm going to take some time and clean my torch face. This is a stainless steel. This is a stainless steel wire brush. Works pretty good. Normally I'd have gas flowing through it while I'm doing this, but the gas isn't on right now. The other reason I'm doing this is I want to make sure that there isn't a whole lot of carbon buildup on here. It doesn't shock me that the concentricity of my torch might be off, as opposed to the thing. So I'm going to swap this out. Ow, fucker! Oh, come out of there. Oh, that's going to bleed later. And I'm going to put this one on, and I'm going to go hog that hole out a little bit. You don't need to see that ugliness. I wasn't going to show this, but I thought this was an excellent opportunity to explain how not to make a hole bigger. So what I should be using is a reamer, but quite frankly I don't have one. I don't have a reamer, I don't have a hone, but what I do have is a Dremel with a sanding drum on it. Now I have a sanding drum that's a little bit closer in diameter. Okay, but the magic little elves that live in my shop grabbed the arbor and ran off with it into the nether regions. Bastards. The other more ideal way to do this would be to put it in put it on a Bridgeport or a little milling machine and run a boring bar through it, or a reamer. If I was to put it, the other thing to do would be to chuck it into a lathe and run a reamer through it, but I don't have that either. So we're gonna. The reason this is bad is because you can't hold this thing. No matter how hard you try, you can't hold this parallel. So what ends up happening is you wallow the hole out on this side, and there's a hump in the middle. I've never been able to get it to work, but it doesn't need a whole. It doesn't need a whole lot, you know. The other thing too is this thing's getting really hot. I'm also not squeezing it real tight in the vise, because if you do, you can bend it, and I don't want to bend it. This thing's just mild aluminum. You also notice I'm running it pretty slow. Aluminum doesn't like to be cut at real high speeds. At least it doesn't like to be sanded at high speeds. If you do that, you gum up the sanding drum. Voice of experience. So I'm running it a little slower than than you think I should be. If I run it the other thing is if I run it real fast, this thing flies apart. So I'm doing my best to hold this thing parallel to the hole, so I don't get that hump in the middle of the hole. And I'm going up and down and, you know, basically reaming the hole out, ruining the beautiful surface finish on the inside, I should add. We're getting there, and it's doing exactly what I knew it was going to do, which is it's making so what happens when you do this is, we're going to say that this is a nice, straight, perfect parallel hole. And what happens when you use this tool to do this is you end up with this. So what you have to do is flip it back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth in the vise until you finally smooth this lump out. You're never going to get this lump out of it, but you can make it a little bit smoother. Now, if I had any ambition, what I could possibly do would be to put Sharpie on the inside of this to act as bluing, and then that would tell me what, you know, to make sure I'm doing it straight. I'm not that ambitious today. I'm a little pissed, actually. I was hoping it was going to fit a little tighter. It's real close. I want it to slip on. I don't want to be futzing around with a screwdriver. I want to be able to adjust it. And more importantly, I want to be able to remove it if I don't like it. And if I force this thing on, if I force it on, it's not going to want to come off. Now, I'm just going to bring all the stuff back over here. Of course, I forgot the screwdriver. That is fucking gross. I sneezed on my workbench. Now, that is that's a much nicer fit. And most likely what the cause of that is this torch. I can't stress enough, this torch is 20 plus years old. It's actually every bit of 20 years old, because I just found a piece of artwork that I traded. I'm going to say I bought this in 2002. I'm almost positive. Okay, so that's actually perfect then. All right, so this was designed by Blast Shield to work with this. If you use a screw type clamp like you use for this type of clamp, the chances of you crushing this are really good. With this type of clamp, you get much better holding pressure and you won't crush it, hopefully. You can crush anything if you try hard enough, trust me. So, slide this up. We're going to put this back together. I want to put it together on the tool here for no apparent reason other than demonstration purposes. Grab the wrong Allen wrench. Very IKEA-y. Yeah, so this project has already gone over the allotted 3 minutes to install it. I always laugh. If I wasn't the type of person that I am, I always wonder how I would go through life not being able to do the most simplest, in my head, the most simplest of tasks. But I guarantee you there are people out there that would do this, that would buy this thing and be completely incapable of making it fit without completely fucking it up. You know, they might be fantastic glass artists, but simple tasks can be above the skill level of a lot of people. Okay, so that's that. Working backwards in the camera isn't all that easy either. I always wonder how Sri Tips does it. That guy gets really good shots. He must literally have the camera in his lap. Sri Tips is a gold refiner. If you don't, I highly recommend watching his channel. It's fascinating. It's fascinating to me. They just use self-threaders to go into this block, which I think is a little shitty, but it saves on machining time. They're not high stress. All right, now let's slide this booger back here. And let's tighten it up and see if we crush anything. Booyah! I like it. It takes very little pressure to get it right. Seems kind of level. Level is a relative term for me. That is going to be a problem, I think. Now I see why it's so high. Okay. All right. The other thing I need to do is tighten this screw up a little bit, but I don't want to do that until I put this torch back on. All right, so now that I put the blast shield on, or the marver, the top marver, I want to reinstall this torch. And I'm thinking that I may end up, I don't know, you know, it might work. Let's just go for it, right? God hates a coward. And besides, it's not a whole lot of work. All right, so that wants to go there. This is a nylon washer. This is just a 1/4 inch flat washer. This drives me nuts, but this is what I got. My preference would be to use a spacer. I want the nylon washer on at least one side. I had 2 nylon washers. The other one disappeared here. So I have this knurled handle on here so I can grab a hold of it. So I can just hold it and tighten it with the wing nut. And that's exactly what I wanted. The only thing I may end up doing with this is I may actually redesign this piece. This might get to be bigger. Because the angle sometimes is a little off for usefulness. And the other thing is this torch head, this ball mount on this torch head gets real tight when it gets hot. So, all right, let's see if we can start a fire here. And you know what? I don't need to start a fire. I know it's going to work. I mean, it is what it is. But this gives me a little bit more leeway to move this torch in and out of the way. It moved. I wanted to move this torch away from this one. And then, quite frankly, I can just tighten this. There we go. That's what I was... This wanted to be tighter. The better torches, the Mirage and what have you, they all come with a rack and pinion, which is... I never understood until I started using it. But this is nice. This puts everything in a way that I can actually use it. I'm not even going to put Loctite on those. Okay, we're good to go. Blast shield installed. Well, this isn't a blast shield. This is a blast shield marver. The shield itself is a piece of glass that goes in the front of this thing that goes like here. And it's to keep the heat and all off of your face. But quite frankly, I wasn't really looking for that. The only thing I may have to do is I may have to move it back a little bit. We'll see. It might interfere where it is right now. It might actually interfere with me working. So I think I can slide this back a little bit more. I think I'm going to. Yeah, there we go. I like that a little better. This way I could have full access to the front of the torch. Because I do pretty small stuff. Yeah. So I do kind of small things. And we'll see. We shall see. Alright, thanks for watching. I hope you learned something. I know I didn't.